Go into the world and tell every man that you meet, there is a man on the cross.
A Catholic Take. What you need to know right now. A bold synthesis of inspiration and information. Keeping you up to date on the news and issues from a courageous Catholic perspective.
A Catholic Take with Joe McLean starts now.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McLean. Praise be to God. It is good to be on with you. We've got a lot to talk about today. Crazy video coming up out of the Northeast New York City metro area. The flooding there was rather intense, so pray for those folks. I don't know if you caught this video out of the Holy Land, but they're just going to Mass. With bombs dropping on the outside. No big deal. They just continue on apparently there in Gaza, just struggling through it. But I do want to talk to Edward Clancy from Aid to the Church in Need today at 14 past the hour about how through all of the crazy, we are seeing some unity here amongst the patriarchs. The patriarchs, the churches, East and West, have gotten together to stand up against violence. Violence from Israelis against Christians in the Holy Land. Edward Clancy joins us from Aid to the Church in Need at 14 past the hour. Then I want to talk about grooming. Groomed by the West. Lily Allen, I don't know if do you know Lily? I don't really know Lily all that well. I've never listened to a single one of her songs or never watched a podcast or anything. But recently on her podcast, she couldn't seem to remember how many abortions that she's had in her life. Who's the real culprit here? Well, Katherine Bennett from the Catholic Herald has an article, and she blames it on the West. And I got to say, right now, there is a large discussion over grooming from a Catholic as well, Alex Gerardo, in the news today. So maybe we'll get into a little bit of that today on the program as well. Lots to discuss. I'm going to ask that you help us by sharing this with a friend, but you can catch all the show notes today over at thestationofthecross.com/ACT. Let's pray. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thine intercession was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, I fly unto thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my mother. To thee do I come. Before thee I stand sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And now your saint of the day.
Emperor St. Henry II, pray for us. Henry was born in the year of our Lord 972, the son of Henry the Quarrelsome, the Duke of Bavaria. The young Henry was taught by Bishop St. Wolfgang of Regensburg, who after his death appeared to the young Henry, now Duke himself, in a dream, pointing out the words, "After 6," written on a wall. Henry prepared devoutly for an early death, but instead, after 6 years, Henry's cousin Emperor Otto III died unexpectedly, and Henry became Holy Roman Emperor. After a long delay of his coronation, Henry marched on Italy and restored the legitimate Pope Benedict VIII to the throne of Peter. Pope Benedict crowned Henry Emperor of the Romans, and the two then held a synod that condemned simony and promoted clerical chastity. Henry also urged the Pope to include the filioque in the Creed in Rome, as was already done in Germany. The emperor built many churches, encouraged reforms, and constantly supported the poor. He and his wife, Saint Cunegonde, were devoutly celibate throughout their marriage. He died in the year of our Lord 1024, and is also celebrated on July 13th, the day of his death. For more about this day and others in the Church's calendar, visit thestationofthecross.com/saints-and-seasons. Emperor St. Henry II, pray for us.
And now your headline news. Breitbart reports Biden says he did not individually approve of the names of many pardoned by autopin. Former President Joe Biden admitted in a newly released New York Times interview that he had authorized the use of an autopin to sign a sweeping wave of pardons during his last day in office. President Donald Trump yesterday called it maybe one of the biggest scandals that we've had in 50 to 100 years, asserting that Biden knew nothing about what he was signing. Ground News reports Secret Service denied multiple requests to bolster Trump's security detail. The Secret Service received classified intelligence about a threat to President Donald Trump 10 days before the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, according to a new Senate Homeland Security Committee report. Despite requests, the Secret Service denied at least 10 requests for additional resources to enhance security during Trump's 2024 campaign. The report criticized the Secret Service for systematic failures, highlighting communication breakdowns and inadequate planning before the rally. 6 Secret Service personnel were suspended for their roles in the security lapses during the Butler rally, but no one was terminated. And Catholic Vote reports St. Thomas More's head may be exhumed. Nearly 5 centuries after King Henry VIII had it parboiled and mounted on a pike, the head of Catholic martyr and statesman St. Thomas More may soon be exhumed for preservation and display. Don't you just love being Catholic? Isn't it great? And those are your headline news. We're the only ones who pass around the bones. It's super cool. Hey, the gospel today comes to us from Matthew chapter 11, verses 20 through 24. Then Jesus began to upbraid the cities wherein were done the most of his miracles, for that they had not done penance. Woe to thee, Chorazin! Woe to thee, Bethsaida! If in Tyre and Sidon had been wrought the miracles that have been wrought in you, they had long ago done penance in sackcloth and ashes. But I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable for Tyre and Sidon in the day of judgment than for you. And thou, Capernaum, shalt thou be exalted up to heaven? Thou shalt go down even unto hell. For if in Sodom had been wrought the miracles that have been wrought in thee, perhaps it had remained unto this day. But I say unto you, that it shall be more tolerable for the land of Sodom in the day of judgment than for thee. The Gospel of the Lord. Laus tibi Christi. Father Haydock, writing back in the 19th century, would say, these 4 verses show us how dangerous it is to resist the divine graces and not to make good use of those favorable opportunities which the divine providence hath placed on us, of working our salvation and of improving ourselves in virtue and sanctity. Sackcloth and ashes. It was the custom for those who were in mourning to be clothed with sackcloth and sit in ashes. More tolerable, for as the fault of him who never had the truth announced to him was less than of him who rejected it when offered, so also his punishment would be less. Kind of reminds me a little bit when St. Thomas in the upper room gets to see the resurrected Jesus, put his fingers in his wounds and such. And what was it our Lord said to him? You believe because you have seen. Blessed are they who believe and have not seen. Faith, the faith of those of us who haven't had the privilege of putting our fingers into his wounds and yet still believe. The faith of those who have seen the miracles wrought in their very midst when Jesus walked amongst them, and still they reject him. So if not seeing and believing is bringing us to salvation, but and seeing and refusing to believe must bring us to hell. It goes on. If we compare this with Luke chapter 10, verse 15, it will appear that Jesus Christ made twice this reproach to these 2 impenitent cities. Seems rather serious. Father McKeevely, writing back also in the 19th century, they are from the same time period, says, after reproaching the Jewish people in general with their perverse obstinacy and resistance to the gospel, our Redeemer now specially upbraids those cities that were specially favored with his frequent visits, his preachings, and many miracles. And again, it's one greater than Moses that is here, one greater than Solomon that is here. If in the desert, many miracles were done. I mean, they were saved. They were brought up out of the land of Egypt, out of slavery. The seas parted. They were given all of the gold and the silver and the jewels from the Egyptians themselves, sending them on their way. And Pharaoh's chariots were drowned in the sea. And water came from a rock. Manna came from heaven. Miracle after miracle after miracle. And still they worshiped a golden calf and rejected God. Let that sink in. This is the subject for which he reproached them. In many instances, most likely they were incredulous. But the cause of reproach is not precisely that, but because they did not reform their lives and do penance for the past in accordance with the teachings of that faith, which many of them probably embraced, for not unlikely many of those whose actions are here censured believed Christ to be the Messiah, but did not, however, change their lives. The Ignatius Catholic Study Bible would say, morally, Capernaum signifies the soul that receives Christ, but falls into mortal sin. Because Christ dwelt there, the fallen away and prideful soul is subject to harsher judgments. Sodom, the city destroyed by God in Genesis 19, it was proverbial Old Testament example of sexual sin and inhospitality that called down God's wrath. Jesus rebukes. His rebukes upon the city recalls God's judgment on the king of Babylon in Isaiah chapter 14, verses 13 through 15. If today you hear his voice, harden not your heart. There is a story in the news that I want to get to that I think is very, I would say it's even positive. It's good. It's hopeful. It's inspirational. That in the midst of persecution, tragedy, violence in the Middle East, there's a unity here. There's a unity. Catholics East and West coming together to raise awareness of Christians being persecuted by the Israelis. Joining us to talk about this story is our good friend Edward Clancy from Aid to the Church in Need, churchinneed.org. Edward, good morning to you. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Joe. It's good to be with you.
Praise be to God. It is always good to have you on the team. So let's talk about the event itself. I've been trying to raise awareness for this, and you have been doing such a wonderful job with it. So what happened? What has brought East and West together all of a sudden?
Well, it's hard to believe that in the place where Christianity was born, that Christian populations are so diminished that there is only one town left that's 100% Christian, and that's Tebe.
Wow.
And it is a town that is, culturally Christian from the first century. So they go back, at least 1,500 years, but many of them even further back. So they trace themselves back to Israelites. They trace themselves back to the Jews. They are the original residents, the families that live there. And this community, which is 100% Christian, was attacked recently by violent Zionists or Israeli settlers looking to take the land away. And in the midst of the attacks, they even put up a billboard telling that you're not wanted here anymore, you don't belong here anymore. And this is a community that has, for the most part, been advocating for peace and working for communication between the Palestinian Muslim Arabs and the Israelis or the Jews. And all of this time, they've lived their lives, they've been able to survive, and they've been picked on now, this opportunity when they're very vulnerable. And because of that, especially Cardinal Pizzabella came out and said that this is a terrible attack on peace-loving people around the world, and that there needs to be some action. And it is just, it goes beyond any scope of imagination to attack a peaceful community. And they're not large, they're not infiltrating, they're not in an area where you would say, oh, they're buying up the land or they're doing something. There's no rationale for this other than they want to be rid of them in the Holy Land.
Yet the West is very silent on this issue, isn't it?
Too much so. We've spoken many times in many places in the world. Whether it was Armenia, the Armenian situation with Azerbaijan, or how many times we've spoken about in Nigeria. The West seems to always be silent when it comes to Christian persecution. And unfortunately, it takes something like this. It takes a terrible attack on a peaceful group of people for Christians of all communities to come together. And hopefully, as you said, this is a sign of good news, an opportunity for people to come together of all Christian denominations and stand together. There's a famous Jewish philanthropist here in New York City who once said at a meeting about Christian persecution, he said, "There are so many of you. Why do you allow it to happen? I don't understand that. We Jews are very few, but nobody forgets about the Holocaust. And yet this is happening to you every day, and you do nothing about it." I think it's time for us to really think about that and to say, as a Christian community, it's important to speak out. It's important to represent those people. These communities don't need our help in the most part. That's the amazing thing. They're not destitute. They've found ways of surviving. I mean, we could go into the region and talk about, for example, in northern Syria, a few years ago when Turkey was moving down and the Syrian armies and the rebel forces now running Syria were attacking the northern part of Syria, which was 75% Christian and producing an incredible amount of the produce and wheat and grains in Syria. They had lived there peacefully, productively for many generations, and yet, nobody said anything then either.
In their statement, the patriarchs and heads of local churches of Jerusalem, they say the Council of Patriarchs and Heads of Churches calls for these radicals to be held accountable by the Israeli authorities who facilitate and enable their presence around Tevye. Even in times of war, sacred places must be protected. We call for an immediate and transparent investigation into why the Israeli police did not respond to emergency calls for the local community and why these abhorrent actions continue to go unpunished. There was a story, I think it was yesterday I reported on it, Edward, about an American born in Florida, but of a Palestinian heritage, was beaten to death over there in the West Bank, and the settlers prevented the ambulance from getting to him until he died. And what is the government doing to come to their rescue?
Again, I hate to repeat myself and say this is the same thing happening in different places. And we talked about it in Nigeria when cities are attacked or towns are attacked, and nothing is done till after it's done. Till after it's over, they take evidence. It amazes me that the people there in Israel, maybe they're so war torn and so battered down by the multi-year war now, that they're afraid to speak up. I don't understand it because this is not acceptable for a community like them to be attacked. And then again, in most of these places where there's conflict, Christians are the unifying force. Christians are the mediating force. I often use the analogy of mortar and bricks, that you have this thin layer that holds everything together. And oftentimes that's the case with these Christian communities. In the 1990s, when I was living in Jerusalem, I remember seeing how many hotels were run by Christians, even the Jewish-owned and Palestinian-owned places. They were run by Christians because the Christians were the better communicators, the better people to deal with the multi-ethnic groups, the better, most times, more multilingual. And
we might have lost Edward Clancy there. He seems to be frozen in time. But New York City's getting pummeled right now. So maybe it's the storms that are over New York City at this point. But we're going to continue to pray for him. Let me just go to the bit of the article here out of LifeSite News for you on this story. I've been hammering this because, it's one of those hot button issues. You're not allowed to criticize the Israeli government without being labeled anti-Semitic. I'm not anti-Semitic. It's an injustice, and it cries out to God for justice. So I'm going to link to the article from lifesitenews.com for you today. But Catholic and Orthodox bishops, as well as other Christian ecclesial community leaders, have issued a joint condemnation, something I read for you a minute ago, about these attacks. And it goes, last month, several homes were attacked by these radicals, lighting fires and erecting a billboard that said, translated into English, there is no room. There is no future for you here, rather. There is no future for you here, the Christian leaders recalled. That's something Edward Clancy mentioned a minute ago. Could you imagine if in your neighborhood, all of a sudden, there was a billboard that said, you aren't welcome here, there's no future for you here? Then they firebombed your car. They threw rocks at you and your kids. And then when the IDF shows up, the Israeli Defense Forces, or the police show up because of the attack, but they don't actually stop it. They don't actually do anything to prevent it. They don't come in on the side of the victims. They come in on the side of the attackers. Could you imagine? That would be crazy. I think Edward Clancy's back, though. Edward, are you back with us? Praise be to God. Good to have you back on. I don't know if it's the crazy storms that are hovering above your city today with the insane video. Insane video of flooding in New York City metro areas. Bizarre. Just, oh my heavens.
No, I don't understand it either. The communication center of the world, so to speak. And sometimes these things happen. Tenacity. Again, the wonderful words that I said that nobody heard but me. What can I tell you? The truth of it is that we have to be prayerfully persistent in communicating the message for Christians around the world, and especially there. How can we abandon the community, the people who literally walk where Jesus was and walk where Jesus was born, where he lived, died, and was resurrected? It has to be something important to us, and I don't know how much more to advocate, for them. I lived among them, and I lived in the Armenian Quarter when I was living there, and that's another community there that's representative of the very roots of our faith, and they have been put upon, and they have been abused, and they have been set aside, and all this while they really haven't received help from the outside. And what we need more than anything else is to speak out for them. We need to make people know that they're there, and we have to remember that is our homeland. That I'm not saying that we should conquer it or anything like that, but that is a place where we were born. Christianity was born, and we can't deny that. What we need to do is reveal Christ to them and open the opportunity for Christians to be there, to live there, to return there, and to grow as a community there.
According to this LifeSite News article, in 2024 alone, just the year 2024, so last year, the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs logged about 1,420 incidents of Israeli settler violence. Seems like it's a pattern. It seems like it's a discernible pattern, and we should be able to do something about it. Listen, I get it's a hot button issue. It's contentious. But the very fact that the Israeli government doesn't do what's necessary to curtail this violence is an indicator, right? Like, that says something about where the Israeli government is on this. They are basically approving this by turning the other cheek.
Yeah, no, again, to echo what happens in Nigeria when you see, communities get attacked and they know they're going to be attacked, and they ask for help and they're not given it. And then after the attack, someone comes in and just does, essentially reconnaissance. Oh, yeah, this happened, that happened, wonderful. There's no way you can avoid the fact that the Christian community there is not being protected and is not being served by the Israeli government, by police forces, by the security forces. And this is something that, again, we shouldn't tolerate that. We shouldn't allow any government to take a group of people that are living peaceful and abuse them. And that's exactly what is happening. It has got to be part of a pattern.
The good news is East and West have come together united under one voice to raise awareness to the persecution of Christians in the Holy Land. I think that is a silver lining in this story. Praise be to God. But let us pray for the Christians there, that they will be able to flourish and not be snuffed out, pushed out, killed, and otherwise. Let's pray for God's provision for them. Aid to the Church in Need. Churchinneed.org is their website, churchinneed.org. Check them out. They're a great opportunity to do something amazing today for the persecuted Christians around the world. You can support them at churchinneed.org. Edward Clancy, thanks for being on the team today. Look forward to having you back soon. Praise be to God. Katherine Bennett from Catholic Unscripted is up next. Let's talk about grooming. It's a problem. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McClain, and here are your headlines. Just the News reports 9 dead after fire sweeps through Massachusetts assisted living facility. 9 people have died, unfortunately, and at least 30 were injured in a fire that broke out in the Gabriel House assisted living facility in Fall River, Massachusetts. About 50 firefighters responded to the assisted living facility at about 9:50 p.m. Sunday and encountered heavy smoke and flames at the front of the building with occupants trapped inside. The fire was out by the morning, and firefighters were able to get inside the building and rescue several people. Many of those rescued were taken to nearby hospitals in varying conditions. 5 firefighters suffered non-life-threatening injuries, and the origin of the fire is under investigation. The Hill reports Trump threatens 100% secondary tariffs on Russia. During a meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, President Trump said yesterday that the U.S. would impose 100% secondary economic sanctions on countries that trade with Russia if Moscow does not agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine within the next 50 days. Rutte is meeting early this week with Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, as well as members of Congress. Ground News reports storms pummel Northeast, prompting flash floods. The National Weather Service said a tropical-like air mass moved through New York City region, combining with storms that fuel heavy storm flash floods. Data revealed intense rainfall rates and flash flooding alerts from the city's emergency service agencies, with 2 to 3 inches per hour recorded, and the agency reported flash flooding in the city amid Hudson areas. Flash floodwaters shut down the Cross Bronx Expressway, and flights at JFK were held for over 3 hours. They're expecting temperatures to get up to 100 and 105 degrees later this week. And those are your headline news. 105. We call that a Tuesday in Texas. But nonetheless, there is a great article over at the Catholic Herald, CatholicHerald.com, theCatholicHerald.com. Title says, Groomed by the West, Lily Allen and the Culture That Failed Her. Katherine Bennett, the author of the article, joins us this morning to talk about it. Good morning to you, Katherine. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Joe. Great to see you again after our connection up in the US a few months ago.
Yeah, praise be to God. It was fantastic to hang out with the Catholic Unscripted trio, an amazing time.
Yeah.
This is an interesting article for a number of reasons. One, because there's an ongoing grooming scandal in the UK, of course. But I would love to say I knew who Lily Allen was. I didn't. I don't. I'd never listened to a single song of hers and was really unaware of her until recently on a podcast. What did she say? What was she doing that's got her back into the headlines?
So Lily Allen was quite big about 20 years ago, I would say. I don't know exactly. I would say she's probably my age, or maybe a bit younger. So she might be in her early 40s now. And she had some big hits going back when she was in her 20s and was very popular. And she's famous for being the daughter of Keith Allen, who was a notorious kind of bad boy actor. I don't know what he was. He was sort of famous for being famous. He appeared in pop videos and things. And she was interviewed. I don't know why she's suddenly back in the headlines, but she was interviewed on a podcast, a kind of deep dive into her life. And as part of that, she said very casually how she has had many abortions and made light of it. And the host, who is a friend of hers, said something, this is not verbatim, but she said something like, "Me too, we've had lots," and they laughed about it. And this went wild, and everybody was commenting on how awful she is to make light of having abortions. And then I wrote this piece to take a slightly different perspective.
You know, so you start out with this big quote, and I want to read it because I think it's a gut-wrenching quote, to be honest with you. I don't know where it comes from. I want you to tell me where it comes from, but let me read it first. It says, quote, "She was made to feel special, like nothing she did could ever be wrong. She was encouraged to be open and free, to ignore the natural instincts which might protect her from her predators. At a young age, she was picked up and instructed in the art of pleasure, including self-pleasuring. She was told that conservative dress codes were oppressive and that she should feel able to express herself and be kinky. She moved from long to short skirts, hitched them high and lowered the buttons on her shirt. She was encouraged to pursue her desires and not to let nature get in the way. Pumped full of drugs from a young age, drugs which meant she could be used and discarded more easily. But when these failed, she found herself diseased and pregnant. More drugs, a trip to be fixed, tidied up, made presentable. She no longer knew what it was to be a woman, if anything at all. She had been picked up and put down so many times. It was all she knew. She was deadened by it all. In fleeting moments, she glimpsed the promise of love, of someone willing to lay down their life, their own life, to protect her. But it was always the same. Once they got what they wanted from her, they left. Every choice she made was informed by this cycle that she was trapped in. That's a gut-wrenching statement. I mean, it's hard to get through that. Where does that come from?
Well, it's at this point I show the depths of my depravity, perhaps, and say that's from my head. What I wanted to do was I wanted to present something from the off that read as if it were a statement coming out of those Pakistani grooming gangs that we've seen so much of, some of those statements. And I thought, well, hang on, what is life like for a young woman? And so much nowadays is about how we control the language. So we talk about reproductive rights, and that masks the reality of what's going on. So I thought, well, let's look at this honestly. What happens to a young girl growing up in today's Western society? She is given a participation medal just for joining in. She's told she can't do anything wrong, that everything she does must be celebrated. Education is teaching her about her sexual freedom and her rights and self-pleasuring. In schools, I know that dress codes are being relaxed because it's seen as oppressive to enforce dress codes. You say drugs and you think illegal substances sold on the street, cocaine and stuff, but is not the reproductive pill a drug? Do we not medicate our young women and essentially sterilize them so that they can't get pregnant? And when they do, we fix them with abortion. So I could see a parallel on the one hand, and this is the incoherence we have in our culture. On the one hand, we're absolutely horrified, and rightly so, at the idea of people charming and grooming young women to essentially use them and discard them. And yet we can't see the bigger picture, that our whole society is built around that principle. We've brought it into schools, that we charm and tell young women that they're fine as they are, to celebrate their sexuality, not to be dowdy and frumpy, or modesty is out the window. Then we drug them up. Then when they're diseased and pregnant, we fix it. And that is essentially one big grooming gang, as I see it. So I took the approach, of course, what Lily Allen did is horrendous, and to make light of it is awful. I'm not trying to take away personal responsibility. But essentially what I was saying is, what do we expect? How can we raise young girls like this in the culture and then expect anything different?
Isn't it, though, a crisis of parenthood? I mean, you talk about her dad in this article and how messed up he might have planted the wrong seeds in her mind and her heart, sort of leading to what you just described and talked about. So aren't the real perpetrators not the West so much as the parents? I mean, as a good parent, ought we not to help our children face this crazy, secular, perverse world and stand on their own 2 feet and fight back?
Well, yeah, of course. But the parents were raised in the same filth that the kids are being raised in. So, of course, parents have a responsibility. But you're talking about parents who are post-war parents who have, often been raised post-60s, post the pill. So then they go on and have kids, and then they don't know anything else. I mean, the line about her father is quite horrific, and one can't help feeling sorry for her, even though the way she spoke is awful. and the choices she's made are awful. There's no one who's, damaged as much as her by that. Obviously, the baby she's murdered through abortion. But what I'm saying is, in a way, she is a victim. So her father, and she wrote about this. So this is from her autobiography. When she was just a teenager, she was just 14. I've got a 14-year-old daughter, and this horrifies me. When she was a teenager, one of her dad's friends, who was a lot older, had sex with her, and it became a joke in the family. Dad made fun of it, made light of it, and didn't take it very seriously. And you just think, if that's the life she led, if she grew up in that environment with her own father making jokes about his mate sleeping with his daughter, then, that's horrendous.
Yeah.
But yes, of course, it's a crisis of parenthood. But the problem is, you've got infants raising children. This is the thing. You've got parents who themselves are badly destroyed by this Western liberalism that threw off the shackles of hierarchy, that threw off authority, that turned everything into power. And now they're the ones raising kids. And so this cycle, as I call it, just continues and is perpetuated.
Just the other day, just a couple of days ago, Cardinal Burke was marking the 108th anniversary of one of the apparitions at Fatima, the July apparition of Fatima. And in his homily, he said, quote, "The message speaks about the practical apostasy of our time that is going away from Christ by so many in the church, and the violence and death which are its fruit," close quote. And in your article, you talk about whether or not, you say, she and many lilies besides, and I'm looking at you, Phillips. I don't know who Phillips is, but boy, I'm scared for them now because you got your eye on them. But anyway, you say, is the victim of failed liberalism, a flattened hierarchy, a cancerous rights-based culture, and that big win for men, feminism. Would Lily Allen be happier living in Christendom? Undoubtedly, yes. And this is, I guess this is something I talk about often, and I'm sort of told to shut up and sit down. Christendom is over. Just got to accept it, got to move on. And my answer is, we should fight to the death for Christendom because it would save Lily's and Phillips and whomever else, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Lily Phillips is a porn actress, and she made a name for herself by, I don't even know, something like sleeping with 1,000 men in a day. These kind of shock kind of, yeah. It's horrific. It's truly horrific. So, but it just so happens she's another Lily. But so we threw off God. So we can go right back to the French Revolution and say, here was man throwing off God and elevating man above God and setting man's standards, and then saying the highest aim in life is to meet man's standards. Even now, if you speak to people, they'll talk about rights and the United Nations and not about God and natural law. And feminism is something that is an inevitability following man's reneging of his rightful authority under God. So once that order corrupts, so we have God and man, and then in the household we have man and then woman, then once that corrupts by throwing off God, then inevitably you're going to get women throwing off the authority of their husbands. And in a sense, who can blame them? Now, people say sometimes, well, that's a very feminist thing to say. It's not. It's about rightful order. If people don't want the kind of society we have, you have to unravel all that and go back and say, women need strong men. So there has to be that order again, putting God first. Then woman will go under the mission of a husband who has God, who he places himself under.
Yeah, the right order of society. But again, we've sold our heritage for a pot of stew, it seems, because the West our culture is toxic now. Parenting is toxic. So what's the answer to that? I think that has to be the church, right? So I want to come back. We're up against a break here. Katherine Bennett is our guest. Lest we think it only happens to secularists, there's a story of all the buzz on the internet about Alex Gerardo allegedly grooming several in a text scandal. So it can happen very close to home. And I think it's, as we said before the break, the culture is sick. What's the answer? Katherine, welcome back to the show. Thank you for your time. So let's talk about the church. I believe the church is ultimately the only answer to any problem in the world. I believe the church could lead the way towards a new Christendom if it desired to do so through blood, sweat, and tears. But I also believe that many in the hierarchy don't have that as one of their goals. It's not on their to-do list today. Katherine, why is that?
No, I mean, why is a big question, and I don't have an answer exactly as to why that is. But you're so right that the church is the only answer. And I think the thing is, people are starting to see that, and it will be driven from the instincts of those who are yearning for something, who know that they're restless and that rest lies only in one place. And that's why we're seeing such growth in tradition, in people returning to tradition. And the problem is that the church for the past number of decades has tried, perhaps for goodwill and good intention, but taking the long view, wrongly in my view, has assimilated somewhat with the world. And it said, if we get down, it's a bit like adults saying, let's get down with the kids. If we get down with the kids, if we offer them what we know they like, then they'll join, and we won't have a numbers crisis. And the opposite's always true, because all you do is you don't offer them anything different. You get down with the kids, and suddenly you're just with the kids doing what they're doing. So right. I think the church has to have the courage to say, we are not the world. Step out of the world, graft yourself onto a new bloodstream, graft yourself into the city of God, get out of the city of man. But it can't do that if it's not offering something different. So hopefully we'll see a change. I think inevitably we will. It gets dark, and the darker it gets, then the candle burns more brightly. And I think people are getting fed up. I think the whole trans movement and some other stuff is eating itself. It's got about as low as it can go, as incoherent as it can go, and inevitably it's starting to show itself. And when it does, this is great, because when it does, the church and her perennial teaching is here.
Are we Catholics just afraid to not be liked? Are we afraid? I mean, do we fear that we're just gonna come across as judgy if we condemn perverse sexual practices or errors in society, and we don't want anybody to think we're judgy, so we try to play nice, and we play it very easy and casual, and we use psychobabble words and basically we want to promote the church's teaching, but we don't want to do it too hard. Are we just afraid of what people will think of us?
That is exactly the problem. But the very strange thing about it is that it's incoherent, and people need to wake up and see the incoherence and start to ask questions. On the one hand, we have a culture. Let's take the UK. I don't know about the US. We have a law going through now that is giving miscarriage bereavement leave, making it a guaranteed right. In other words, if you miscarry a baby in your womb, you have a guaranteed right to have that recognised by paid bereavement leave. They're bringing this in at the same time as they are voting on a law to allow abortion and infanticide up to and including the point of birth. How can you have a society so incoherent as to have one law recognising that this is a life and that you're grieving, and the other saying you can take that life? We've got a case in the moment in the UK, two very strange people, Constance Martin and someone else, who are in court because they negligently, I don't know the actual legal definition, but their baby died. Either they killed their baby or their baby died from negligence in the first few months of its life. People are outraged. So people still have the right instinct, but their instincts have been obfuscated by layers and layers of artificiality and lies, and by language that is twisted and turned and using the foundation of rights-based language. Now, whenever we hear that, our alarm bells should start to ring. We should get back to the idea of the fact that we're created beings. We don't make up the rules, okay? We have been created in a certain way for a certain purpose. And if we can get the conversation back to that and say, what kind of creatures are we? How are we different from other creatures? What is our purpose? Then we've got some hope of then doing the next steps into, well, the truth is to be found in Holy Mother Church. But yeah, it's the incoherence. On the one hand, we're scared of upsetting people and we want to be liked. And on the other, we know outrage. We know how to be outraged when we want to be. We're just a bit confused about what that is.
Right. I'm going back to Lily Allen here and just thinking about, as a dad, you know, the conversations that I've had with my daughters, even my sons, about discernment, you know, and relationships, and how difficult it is for them to have to be strong and aware of who they are, who they belong to, God, and what He expects of them in order to survive their peer groups, because peer groups make and break us in big ways. And when we send them off to college, and that's what I ask about is like, what do you recommend to parents here? Because like, as Catholic parents, we feel very pressured to send our kids off to their rite of passage through college or whatever. And a lot of times they don't make it through that gauntlet. They don't make it to the other side, Catholics. And yet we as Catholics are so tuned into this that we continue to participate in this very flawed system. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, this is a difficult one because it's each family's personal, you know, kind of prudential judgment on the matter. But personally speaking, I have lost faith in education and I just ripped off the Band-Aid. Education and healthcare used to be under the purview of the church. As soon as the state got its hands on education and healthcare, it turned it into a business. It's now a business, and it's a business where you're pushing agendas. You're trying to make an outcome to raise children with a utilitarian mindset. And I think every parent has to ask the question, do we want to put our kids into that system? There are alternatives, and I think there's increasing alternatives. Not only are you going to go into college, into universities over here, and be filled with this garbage, with increasing amounts of courses that are not worth the paper they're written on. They're absolute garbage. It's not real education. Not only that, but you're getting into tens of thousands of debt for the pleasure of having your head filled with rubbish. So then you send young people out in their 20s, riddled with debt, full of nonsense, and then they become enslaved to the work, to work, because they're going to have to spend the next few decades paying off that debt. So is there another system? You have to find your own. But I've lost faith in education. I think Catholics, this is where we need to help each other. We need to set up, we need to kind of set up ways of supporting, of training, of apprenticeships, of helping one another out, getting that kind of Catholic social teaching, that subsidiarity.
Yeah, because getting our kids to heaven is our only goal. It's not necessarily getting them a great job or a good house or fancy friends, a nice car. Like, those things are nice and all, but that's not the goal. It's heaven or bust, right? And I think too many parents have bought into, going back to what Cardinal Burke was saying, I quoted in the last segment, was, we have bought into the lies of this world. That is, by definition, the great apostasy, and we don't even know we're participating in it. Katherine, Bennett, that music means we're out of time. I'm going to encourage everybody to check out this article, thecatholicherald.com, especially if you're a parent.
Do check out Catholic Unscripted as well. Sorry,
yes,
Joe.
Thank you. I appreciate that for reminding me. The Catholic Unscripted crew, the trio from the UK, that's so amazing. I check them out on YouTube, but you can check out their website. We'll put a link to that as well, Catholic Unscripted.
And we're back. Welcome to the after show, everyone. Katherine had to go, but she says thanks for having her on the show, as always.
Praise be to God in all things. It worked out. I was not sure it was going to work out today, to be honest with you. With all of our, it was looking kind of dicey, and then it all just sort of worked out. Praise Jesus.
Oh well, and even with Edward, we had the connection issue. The weather interfering probably, but such things happen.
You mean the geoengineered weather in New York City? Is that what you're referring to? That one?
The cloud seeding.
The cloud.
Harper Ray.
Clouds seating above New York City. It's crazy video, though, of subways flooding while people are on the train. Highways closed down.
I mean, it's happened before, but yeah, it is.
When has it ever happened before? It's never happened before in New York City.
I forgot. We've never had natural disasters before.
Never. Ever.
Yeah.
When was there? Wasn't there
with real life?
Wasn't there like a hurricane or something that flooded Manhattan or something? maybe
Hurricane?
5, 6, 7, 8 years ago.
I think so. It came up the coast and flooded.
Yeah, it was like a big storm several years back.
Well, there was
global warming.
Was it Hurricane? Oh shoot, Hurricane Sandy or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
That
Sandy, says Jane.
Yeah, it was Sandy that hit the coast really bad. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe it's happened before. Maybe. I might concede the point. I don't know.
But that was also geoengineering.
It was probably also geoengineering. Exactly. Hey, good morning, Sci-Fi from sunny Rochester, New York. Praise be to God. Good morning to you, Paul, our friend from Buffalo. Becky Hansen is here. Good morning to you. Thanks for being on the team today. Over on the Telegrams group. Boy, lots of conversation back and forth there. I don't even know what you guys are talking about with the, we're parboiled. Becky, good morning. As I said, low key, good morning to you. Mike K from, are you still in Chicago, Mike? From sunny Chicago. Good morning to you. Boy, the other day I saw a video of one of my YouTube go-tos for the family is a YouTube channel called Homesteady. It's a family from Pennsylvania. They got a bunch of kids. They homestead, but they just recently bought a cabin and property in Alaska, and they're moving across. They drove through, Canada to get up to Alaska from Pennsylvania. And they stopped in Chicago for deep dish, and I was reminded just how good pizza could be if you intend for it. If you try. Deep dish is the only way to go. Makes me jealous. I wish I could have pizza again. That would be amazing. Bob, good morning to you. Donald, good morning to you. Sharon, you are amazing. Thank you for being on the team. Says, good morning. We are on the move today, headed to visit with friends in Old Orchard Beach, Maine. I haven't been to Orchard Beach in many years. I will be lurking in the background. God bless everybody. You are amazing. Yvonne, good morning to you. Thanks for being on the team. Damon, Rebecca, good morning. Appreciate you guys being here today. James 16897. Anna, good morning to you. Praise be to Jesus in all things. Anthony Medea, good morning. Evelyn, you are amazing, Evelyn. Might fix the papacy too. Who's fixing what again? Ellen, good morning. You live 75 miles from New York City. We hardly got any flooding at all. Praise be to God. Yay and amen. Eileen. I said Ellen, but I meant Eileen. Eileen Rich.
Evelyn's number one today. I don't know what she's number one in, but
Evelyn
number one in our hearts, Evelyn.
It's a new feature. It's a new feature in YouTube called the leaderboard.
Okay.
So it ranks the commenters by, their flurry of activity. Alberto's coming in at number 3. Helen Grace at number 2.
And Alberto came in late
today, race.
So,
on the outside, here comes Helen Grace for the win.
Great. How do I only have 75 XP? What is this nonsense? Where am I even ranked? I'm ranked number 12 right now.
Make pizza great again. Yay and amen, brother. Oh, the deep dish. It is the only thing Chicago provides that's great, to be honest with you, is the deep dish. It's the way to go. Janice, good morning to you. You opted out of the leaderboard. You could opt in. I didn't even know that was the thing. You can opt in or out. I didn't. That's amazing. You were number 1, Alberta. What happened to you, man? Those were the good days, weren't they? You were back when you were number 1. Now Evelyn is ruling the roost. King of the hill, queen of the hill. Jeff Horn says, you've never seen anything to you to watch New Yorkers argue about what kind of pizza is the best. There's no need to argue. The answer is deep dish. That is, in fact, the definitive answer on the subject. So there's no need to argue about it. There is deep dish, and then there's whatever junk comes out of New York, Italy, and other bad places that don't understand how to make a pizza. It is a settled question. It's kind of like women's ordination. I don't even know why we're discussing it. It's settled.
Buffalo pizza is the best pizza.
Have I triggered enough people?
Buffalo pizza is the best pizza because it's not really thin, and
it's medium,
kind of ethereal like New York City pizza.
So you're saying you're playing both sides,
but it's not. But it's not impossible. But it's not impossible to eat with your hands like Chicago pizza, which is really just kind of a big pizza casserole, which is an awesome thing.
Exactly what
awesome thing, but you can't eat it with your hand. Buffalo pizza
it's totally a casserole.
Is thick, but not too thick, so you can still eat it with your hands. And it's got the cup and char pepperoni.
Buffalo is schismatic. It's the problem.
The
They've gone orthodox.
No, they
have leavened bread.
We are in the golden mean. We are in the center between excesses of qualities. We are in the golden mean where virtue lies. That's where Buffalo pizza is.
Is that what that is?
Yep.
Oh,
we're based centrist pizza.
Sal's. You know, my wife and I used to love Sal's pizza in Manchester, but it was like super thin. The only good news is each slice was as big as your head. So you did get some good bang for the buck, but it's like one of those thin pizzas where you have to fold it almost up like into a, what do you call those things? Starts with a C.
This is great. Adelaide says, "I'm not afraid to admit when you're wrong, Joe." I'm stealing that line, Adelaide. I'm going to use that on Joe all the time.
Yeah, you should be. You should be. For I, the Holy Roman Emperor, am all powerful, and I come with wrath. So you ought to be very.
I will say I do enjoy New York style pizza where it's
calzone.
so thin you can
Jane.
like roll the slice up. It's good, but calzones are good too.
No, when you have to turn your pizza into calzone, I think that's part of the problem, right? Because you can't hold it because it's just so floppy or whatever.
Yeah,
you're like, come on, you got to fold it into. It becomes a calzone. If I wanted a calzone, I would have bought one. I don't want a calzone. I want a pizza. So give me.
The thing about the New York pizza is so thin, you keep eating the slices and you're like, oh, I could have a second pie. This is great, you know? Like how sometimes you want the burger sliders instead of the one big burger because you just keep popping the burger sliders.
Why have one when you can have a dozen?
Exactly. Like,
you know?
It's like donut bites, you know? Donut holes.
Low-key
says here in Western New York.
Now I'm hungry. Stop it. Joe.
It's your fault. You brought it up.
Hey, stop. Hey, we don't need your facts, okay, Jake? Keep your facts to yourself.
Feelings don't care about your facts.
That's right. Low key says, Joe, I read that the girls' camp was on a floodplain. Why the heck would they put it there? Well, it's like anything else. Why do you build your house upon sand? The reality is they get a flood how often? Like this type of an event is rare. But when it happens big. It happens bad. And you got to be very, very cautious and careful. And that's part of the breakdown in this story is they were told days in advance that there was coming rain, floods, potential, but they weren't told how bad. Like what they were told was this, and what they got was that. They should have taken that and said, "Hey, we need to be cautious with a bunch of girls around. We need to evacuate." That's not what they did. Do I totally blame them? No. But that's my answer to that. That's why people they want to live on a river because it's beautiful. Because it's enjoyable. People love the Guadalupe River. As a kid, I would raft that on two inner tubes. You know, we would you tube down and they would truck you back, that kind of thing. It was amazing. People come from all over to go do that there. So it's a high tourist area. Jacob F., New Orleans, good morning to you. Thank you for hanging out. Very low-lying area. Yeah, very low-lying. They're below sea level, New Orleans. It's not even like they're on the bank. They're not on the shore of the ocean, of the Gulf. They're under it. That's New Orleans is worse. That's why Katrina was so bad. Because they're underneath. Las Vegas is a desert. Las Vegas, God help them. Terrible. Drain the swamp, says Mac. Yeah.
At least Las Vegas never has to worry about flooding.
They don't have to worry. They got to worry about water at all. I mean, they need water. Janice, gyros. I did have a good gyros when I was in gyro. It's not spelled. I'm trying to remember how they said it exactly. I forget.
It's almost more like a hero.
He with a hard H.
Yeah,
hero. Like hero or something like that.
It's not hero.
It's not hero, but
Euro is the closest. It's not gyro.
It's more nuanced.
And that's why I call it a hiroscope. But no, the it's not hero. Euro is the closest, and it's kind of more like hero, I think. You know,
hero.
There's a close mix between the two. The best heroes. The best heroes.
I forgot how.
The best heroes are made at the stand run by the Latinos at the Erie County Fair. Those are the best heroes I've ever had in my life.
Of course.
They're
I don't know. I had an
Absolutely
amazing hero. I had a
bet
couple
in Greece they have
amazing
some
heroes in Greece.
I'll bet they have some great
with the lamb. Oh, that was one of the only ways I could get the lamb. Honestly, was buying them. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Where's my lamb? I want my lamb. Every day I was hoping for lamb, and I got it only a few times. Chris Lopez, good morning, Joe. What movie do you like best, Platoon or Full Metal Jacket? Wow. Oof. You're expecting me to choose between my children here.
That's a tough question.
That's a tough question. That is I like them for different reasons, though. But like in the whole genre of anti-war Vietnam films, you still got Hamburger Hill to throw on a log on that fire.
And Apocalypse Now.
Apocalypse Now, yeah, there's a whole bunch, but out of those two, so I have to say, I have to go with Full Metal Jacket, right? Because I'm obligated, because it's a Marine Corps film, you know. I mean, you have to, like, it's required. So I guess I'm going to have to go with Full Metal Jacket. Although that scene with Charlie Sheen, his first time in the bush, everybody's sleeping, hiding in the weeds, and he's covering up because the ants are killing him. And then all of a sudden there's this, like, he notices, like, hears something, and he's like peeking out, and he just looks over at the guy with the the Claymore switch. Next thing you know, all hell breaks loose. Like, that was a intense scene. I mean, I don't know. Full Metal Jacket was propaganda at its best, at its finest, and Platoon was masterful anti-war film propaganda, but at the same time, like storytelling, right? You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean by that? Like, Full Metal Jacket was just like in your face, hardcore gut punch. Platoon was more nuanced and poetic in many ways. So I like them for different reasons. Hey,
what's that other one? The Deer Hunter? With
oh yeah. That's another one. The Deer Hunter. Forgot about this. There's a whole bunch, man. It's the Rambo. We can throw Rambo on
the first Rambo is a very anti-war film.
The book is more harsh than the movie, though.
Yeah.
The book was way more harsh. Stripes, man. I loved Boom Shakalaka. Man, I loved Stripes as a kid. Good grief. I should have never watched that. Like, I was allowed to watch the worst films ever as a kid. I watched Stripes at the movie theater, at the drive-in. Just right along with, what's The Jerk? You guys remember The Jerk? Like, I watched that at the movie drive-in theater. Man, oh man. Good grief. Can I bring up this story? Because it was the talk of the town.
Yep.
It was the talk of the town yesterday. I did not really bite on this too much, but I think it's a good teachable moment for the rest of us. Alex Gerardo, voice of reason. Recently, he was on the Matt Fradd show where he and Matt daydreamed about excommunicating Taylor Marshall. Perhaps I could be thrown into that category if they got their way. I don't know. Others for sure. But most of that conversation I kind of liked, if I'm being honest with you. I mean, that part was like, oh, guys, come on. But the rest of the conversation, it was enjoyable, to be honest. But unfortunately, it broke yesterday. Allegedly, he's been involved in some grooming of young women, text-related grooming. I don't know if this is true. There is a whole thread with screenshots. I did not go read those things. I saw samples posted on X, but I did not go for the whole treasure trove of them. I don't intend to. Apparently, he's been scrubbed from Catholic Answers. Catholic speakers also scrubbed him from their website. And I haven't heard a word from him on this one way or the other, either way. And yesterday, the Avoiding Babylon crew were talking about it on their feed. Well, Alex Gerardo, I think if anything else, and I don't know if it's true. You let me know, but I didn't go looking through the treasure trove, but I was told that that it was pretty disgusting what was in there and inappropriate. And for his sake, I hope it's not true. I hope he defends himself. But if it is true, I think it's a teachable moment for the rest of us. Do you know your limits? Do you know your boundaries? Something I wrote, I want to grab my book. My book isn't here because I usually give them all away and I don't print them anymore. I don't even try to sell the book anymore. But I wrote a book in 2014 on overcoming pornography addiction. And part of what I wrote in that book was based on my experience in the United States Marine Corps. When you get shot at, you don't wait until the bullets snap, because you always hear a snap. The bullet snaps because it's breaking the sound barrier, so you hear a snap. And you don't wait until then when you go, you know what, hey, what should we do? What do you think you got? Guy, all in favor, show of hands, how many people want to duck? Raise your hand. Anyone? How many people want to run? Raise your hand. Okay. How many people want to counterattack? Get online assault through. Okay, by majority vote, that's what we're going to do. That's not, the Marine Corps beats it into you. This is why Full Metal Jacket is so masterful in its propaganda, because, I got to say, when I went to boot camp, I had my Full Metal Jacket experience. Like we experienced that level of intensity, and I would say many times it was worse. Like you're doing hand-to-hand combat drills in a pit, in a sand pit, and there was like a walkway, like a elevated platform, and these DIs would pace up and down there as you're choking some dude out or trying to break his arm. In these hand-to-hand combat drills, he's rattling off statistics from Vietnam. In Vietnam, every Marine at a fire base was responsible to kill 30 North Vietnamese Viet Cong soldiers. And if you died without permission, your buddy would have to kill 60. I mean, he would just start rattling all this stuff off, So, and you're a young, impressionable man. You're just like, whew. So I use that experience to write in my book. To give the metaphor, the analogy, so to speak. Do you know where your boundaries are? Do you know where your enemies are? Do you know your enemies' capabilities? Do you know what their tactics are? Do you know how they intend to kill you? And if the answer to that question is yes, then you have everything you need to be more successful and to win the battle, right? So if this phone is the gateway to hell for you, should you have the phone? Or at the very least, couldn't you say you should do what you need to do? Because let's just say, like me, I have to work. I need computers. I need phones. I need to be able to communicate, to research, and do all these things. Well, then do I have the boundaries so that I'm not going to cross those boundaries, right? Do I have the tools, the assets, the necessary things in order to set those boundaries up and to respect them? But even if I didn't have any guardrails, St. Paul says it was written on our heart. And I know better. That's why we have a conscience that speaks to us, that guilts us. If we feel guilt for a reason, that guilt is a gift from God to keep you in check. Do you know where your checks are? Do you know where your boundaries are? And do you respect them? If you don't know who you are, then you're going to wait until the bullets fly. And by then it's too late, because if you're trying to make important decisions when someone is trying to kill you on what you're going to do in that scenario, it is too late. You are dead. It's just a matter of seconds. But if you have decided before that ever happens who you are, whose you are, and what you're going to do when those bullets fly, how you're going to react, and then you discipline yourself to practice that, to be disciplined when those bullets fly, you will react appropriately, which is why I called my book Muscle Memory, because this is what firefighters do. This is what police officers do. Medics do this. I mean, everyone in the world does this in most disciplines to react based on discipline and training. But how many men, maybe similar to Alex Gerardo, the voice of reason, have allowed themselves to fall prey to that temptation because they weren't prepared, because they didn't really know and understand and make clear distinctions in their mind where those boundaries are. I said this to my son the other day, my 18-year-old. What kind of man do you want to be? It's time for you to make that choice. It's time for you to stand on your own 2 feet. Don't make your parents do this for you. You're 18. It's time for you to decide what kind of man you're going to be so that when you are all alone, surrounded by the peer pressure of your environment, and they're doing things that you don't believe in because it's not the kind of man you are you prepared to stand there and say, nope, I'm not doing that? I think too many men and women have never done that. They've never made those decisions. They've never thought and contemplated what kind of person they actually are and what they will and will not do, where those boundaries are. And then they wait until things get really bad, and then they fall prey to those temptations, and it just gets worse from there. Flying Tigers, good morning to you. Says Matt Fradd's interview with Alex Gerardo, Voice of Reason, may yank that interview soon. Whether he does, listen, the evidence looks very incriminating. I'm not going to lie. Do I know its veracity? Absolutely not. I have no means of verifying one way or the other the veracity of the evidence stacked now against Alex Gerardo, nor has he come out one way or the other. As far as I can tell, has anybody heard any statements from him at all? Please, if so, tell me, because I have not seen it. So I'm praying for him, obviously. It looks very incriminating. I couldn't tell you one way or the other. The internet is never gone. The interview is gone, you're saying, Janice. Okay, well, the internet is forever. And the Wayback Machine has the receipts. But whatever. I was going to say, I'm not a big cancel culture kind of guy. Unless it's Marco Rupnik. But no, I say this to say, I would not pressure Matt Fradd to take the interview down necessarily. If he chose to take it down, fine, good enough. But I wouldn't pressure him to take it down. Do I want Alex Gerardo working in professional circles? No, probably not. Do I want him to, be so canceled, so ostracized that he can never work again? No, absolutely not. He needs to repent if he's guilty of this. Do penance. And that was the gospel today, was it not? Woe unto you, Chorazin. It'd be better for Tyre and Sidon than it would be for you in the day, because I did many miracles in front of you. They would put on sackcloth and ashes and do penance. The answer for all of us is do penance. I've committed many horrible sins in my life to which I have to do penance. There is a forgiveness. There is a tomorrow. There is another chance. But just because we give someone another chance does not mean that we just act naive and imprudent in all of that. So Alex probably ought not to be in situations where he's hanging out with young ladies. From a professional standpoint, right? I mean, I think that's prudential judgment. But I don't know. I do not know the details, the full details on this story. I just don't. Matt Fradd equal money, so of course he would take it down. I'm sure Matt is very concerned now about the optics of it. I think he was less concerned about the optics of him and Alex Gerardo fantasizing about excommunicating and punishing publicly, ardent, outspoken Catholic talking heads like Dr. Taylor Marshall, which, I was telling my wife this yesterday. It's like, golly gee whiz, Taylor Marshall has really kind of been out of the whole tit for tat stuff on the internet for a while now. And yet his name repeatedly comes up over and over and over again as sort of like the punching bag of the Pope-splaining crowd. And I just don't understand. It's like Taylor has kind of moved on from it. He's, got other things to do. And he's not just beating the same drum over and over again. And yet they still kind of beat him up. And I just don't understand. I didn't understand that in this conversation between him and Matt Fradd. But let me know what you guys think. KSW Benedictine Oblate is in at number 1 right now. Up 5 spots to number 1. It's KSW Benedictine Oblate who says in this recent after conversation in his past. What? In his recent?
Is this recent?
Oh, is this recent?
After conversion in his past?
In his past.
So as near as I can figure, I didn't dive too deeply into this, but just to explain for everyone what exactly is going on. Basically, people have lots of screenshots of conversations he has had with young women. One of them is allegedly with a woman who was 14, but that incident was several years ago, I think it's not certain when the date is, and it's possible he was also a minor at the time, because he started doing, what's the word? Apologetic stuff like at 16 or something like that, he claims. So that one's from quite a long time ago. But many of the screenshots are very recent, as in he's been going around being a, Catholic apologist and then using those connections and that, kind of minor celebrity to basically, it's not really grooming, it's seduction is what I said in the chat. Most of this is an issue of him seducing young women who came to hear him speak or whatever like that at these conferences and things. I'm not sure to what extent those relationships went on, but basically there's a lot of screenshots of texts with some, at least somewhat explicit content and just very, very highly inappropriate at the very least. Basically, after going on Matt Frad's show and saying, I don't think I'm called to marriage, I think I'm called to the single life, my apostolate, this, that, the other, which is already a red flag. Basically, he's kind of just been playing the field using his minor celebrity to get girls, so to speak. Basically, a Catholic rock star type of attitude. So that's the extent of it. Again, the one incident that is allegedly him texting and grooming, quote unquote, a 14-year-old girl, as far as I can tell, is from quite a long time ago, and we're not sure even if he was, whether he was a legal adult, making that illegal behavior. If that was not, that was basically just two teenagers being stupid, then all the other incidents are not necessarily illegal. They're just, immoral.
Maybe inappropriate.
So, highly inappropriate. I mean, he's the allegations are that he has actually followed through and been, sleeping around basically type of thing. So, no one's, there's no definitive details here, but there is a lot of screenshot evidence of conversations apparently. The issue here is that, or not the issue, but there's a lot of issues going on here. A lot of opportunities for conversation. But one thing that's interesting is, it's just why make this? If there was illegal behavior, that shouldn't be just published out here like that. That's something that should be taken to authorities. If there was illegal behavior, and if it's just immoral behavior, there's a responsibility to try and correct that with him in private first. And there doesn't seem to be any.
I think the guy who has collected all of these screenshots and
did he try that?
Them is a anti-Catholic Protestant.
Okay, well there you go.
So I doubt that person has Alex's soul in his intentions.
Yep, exactly.
I think he's just trying to harm.
Yep.
Alex Gerardo at that point.
And it is, and this is harmful to Catholics in general. It's a scandalous issue. You've got someone who's claiming to speak, and this is a big issue when you've got this is something we were talking. Who was I talking about? But basically, you've got Flying Tigers. The women, they're young. They were around his age. He's pretty young too. The one incident is with allegedly with a 14-year-old, and that one again could be seriously illegal. But for the most part, these are women who are not that much younger than him. This is an issue just of a guy using his celebrity to get young women. They're not blameless in that. They chose to be to.
You're saying they're the Bathshebas?
They made it. No, I'm not saying they seduced him.
Watching me bathe while I'm out here in the open air in front of everyone?
No, okay. But if they're out, if they're out chasing a young single Catholic influencer, and willing to do that, they have some culpability.
Well, they're young and
in
impressionable. Young people do dumb things.
Yes, exactly.
This is why virtue has
really
to be ingrained in them from an early age.
Exactly,
right?
And why they need to be under the authority. I mean, if
I'm not mistaken, one of the girls was actually trying to debate him, or not debate him, but say, hey. She was trying to say, let's, I want to pursue marriage and virtue and not sin, and sort of really disappointed in him because he was pressuring her in that way. So I did not read all the screenshots. I don't want to read all those screenshots. I'm not interested to know all the dirty details.
Yep.
I don't know the dirty details of Hunter Biden's exploits.
Yeah.
Don't want to know. Thank you, but no thank you. I just think it's a teachable moment for the rest of us to say, do you really understand and know your boundaries? There was a great conversation yesterday on the Avoiding Babylon podcast about all of this, and talking about the celebrity pressure and all of that. You know, and if you're looking for the approval of the world, then you're going to be faced with a lot of temptations.
Yep.
You know, and again, this is why you gotta be very clear in your own mind who exactly you are, what you believe in and what you don't believe in. Whether you are a public-facing person or not, I don't think it matters. I think the process and the procedure is the same. There may be different strategies for public-facing people, but you know, at the end of the day, you have to decide exactly who you are and what you believe and where your boundaries are and what you will do when you are faced with that temptation. You've got to know that you're going to walk away. So you're not, you know, and I've shared this before, this anecdotal story, but Father Sam Medley of the Salts told me that the founder of that community, when he was young in the community, brought him together and just said, hey, decide right here today, right now, decide for yourself whether or not you are going to be prepared to be a martyr for the faith. Can they chop your head off? Are you okay with that? Or will you be at peace? And he says the reason why is because if that day should ever come, you won't be stressed about it. You won't be freaked out. You won't be anxious. You will be at peace. And I think that technique is exactly what I wrote about in my book, and it's good for all of us. You know right now what you will do when those bullets start flying, and then you will be more at peace, and you'll be more calm and prepared to handle those temptations than just simply hope, you know, in that emotional moment to be caught up when that dopamine is rushing in your head and riding through your whole body like a surfer on a wave, as Carol Wojtyla wrote in Love and Responsibility. And then you just give yourself over to it.
And here's where the nature of what he does as a career plays a role here, because if this was a young pop star or a young just social media influencer who went around telling people, oh, you should work out more, or here's how you build your Instagram career, like type of thing.
Here's how you build your lats.
Would we be shocked if even if he was nominally Catholic, but his career was entirely centered around something else, something not specifically Catholic? Would we be shocked that he was, basically?
Well, that's why I brought him up at all today.
Yes,
because
exactly,
we were talking about Lily Allen, the secular pop star who was raised terribly.
Yeah,
but I'm like, it happens in our own Catholic homes.
Yeah. And this is part of this. Part of this thing is that he is not. He has no obligation to celibacy. He's more than welcome to try and find a wife. To try and to talk to girls and to be seeking a future spouse. That's legitimate. Like you said, that one girl that was her focus. She was like, oh, maybe I'm actually this is I fell in love with this Catholic influencer guy and this is great. And that's different from again the one grooming allegation thing, which again is not. I'm not sure if there's the details of that have been confirmed. And there is another figure. Catholic Instagram figure in this, which looks like it was maybe even kind of worse situations, but just specifically talking about Voice of Reason here, Alex Gerardo. We shouldn't be surprised that he is talking to girls because he's a layman. He's a single male layman who's trying to be a lay minister, apostolic preacher type deal, apologist, whatever. He has no oversight. He has no vows that he's taken. He has no obligation to never speak to women. We shouldn't be shocked by that. And the extent to which he's kind of just, again, it seems like he's just playing the field and he's talking about, I don't think I'm called to get married. Really, dude? That's where you're seeing
pause,
hypocritical activity.
Pause.
Here.
We interrupt this point you're making to chase this rabbit hole here.
Sure.
Are you saying you don't believe that there is a single state, single not consecrated to religious life, single not in the priesthood, but
not
just
really
lay single?
Not really. I think that's just, if it happens, that's unfortunate, but no one's actually called to that. That's my personal opinion on that. I think there are situations where that just doesn't work out and you end up single, but I don't think anyone's actually called to do that.
Douglas brings up Father Carlos Martins. Father Carlos is a different case. He wasn't grooming anybody. He wasn't texting anybody.
No.
He picked up a hair to make a point in a talk he was giving off of a young girl's shoulders, just to talk about this one little hair and that got him in big trouble. I would say I would not put him in the same category at all. I don't know. He has obviously gone very quiet. He is obedient to his superiors. So if they told him to sit down and be quiet, that's what he's doing. I don't know if he'll ever be public again. I guess time will tell. But it definitely is a problem for priests because of the celebrity element.
Yes.
They have to go above and beyond to manage that process in order to safeguard themselves. When I used to run Catholic conferences, big conferences, and I'd hire all these speakers, a lot of times when it came to priests, some priests would travel alone. Other priests, they were required, especially like on the religious side of things, if we were going to hire said famous priest that everybody likes and loves, we also had to bring in somebody else because they were required to travel in pairs in order to have like that check and balance in their life. So in other words, the community came with them, right? They weren't out in a hotel room all by themselves, that kind of thing. So it can be dangerous. It can be very difficult. And I would say it's worse for priests because they're a bigger target, right? And I helped to perpetuate the monster that became Father John Carapi. I was definitely a part of the problem in that regard because I was part of the system that hired him, promoted him, turned the cheek when his ego was unchecked and out of control, when his demands were absolutely unrealistic and not virtuous. And we just went along with it. Why? Because we wanted to put butts in seats. Because we wanted to sell out our conferences. That's why we did that. So I definitely helped to perpetuate his downfall. And for that, I repent. And I pray for Father John Carapi, to live out the rest of his days, prayer, fasting, and penance. And he has been. Right? When's the last time you heard from him? Years. Praise be to God. Praise be to God. So it is a difficult thing. And lay folk are no different. So when lay folk put themselves into the spotlight, and as I think you said, Jake, a minute ago, without the accountability, without the checks and balances, man, it can be very slippery. It can be very, very slippery. Yeah, I thought one of the downsides of the Father Carapi story is we lost a powerful communicator, didn't we? Like that's the tragedy. It's one of the tragedies of that scenario. Is one, his own priesthood was lost, and he was a powerful communicator. He brought a lot of people out because of his capability to tell stories and to keep you gripped, and that's part of the tragedy of it all.
Yeah, no problem, Stephen S. on that explanation. I get what you're saying, but my point is that no one's actually called to be single. Sometimes you just end up not finding the person that you're supposed to be with, and you don't have a vocation.
Or sometimes you blow it.
You might blow it, or they blew it, and you just never made that connection. What I'm saying is that's a cross to bear, but that's not. People shouldn't act, especially when I went through a time before I met my fiance. I went through a brief time where I was like, oh, maybe I'm just not meant to get married. I've been through some failures here of relationships, and I couldn't figure this out. And then like a month later, I matched with my fiance on Catholic Match, and now we're engaged. I had this moment of thinking, maybe I'm just not called to be married, type of thing. And that was part of what helped me think, look, it's just, and other people who are much wiser than I have written about this and explained it better. But basically, you're called to either marry the church or marry someone else. Sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes the vocation doesn't work. There are people who had vocations and they were destroyed by, a bad seminary or by a bad advisor or anything like that. And that doesn't mean that they never had that vocation. That doesn't mean that God's plan was that they should fall for that vocation, type of thing. But it's no one's called from the get-go to be single and just be out in the world as a single person. Sometimes that's just the cross that someone has to bear.
It's not by design.
Yeah, it's just not by design. And just like someone said, what about people who are same-sex attracted or whatever? That's not a natural state of being. That's not part of God's design, is that you should be attracted to the other sex. So that's not really, There's a cross that you might have to bear with that, but you're not called to be same-sex attracted and then stay single. In that
Jesus
sense,
made it very clear, those eunuchs, for the sake of the kingdom of God, the priesthood, religious life, their purpose was very, very specific. It wasn't laity. So.
Yeah. And
the design is marriage.
And this goes into the whole issue of lay apologetics. A lot of people online are taking this opportunity to say this is why we're in such a touchy time where we have often, it feels like we have so few good religious to go to, and we prop up lay apologetics and lay apologists as authorities beyond what they are, called to and capable of doing. It used to be that only a deacon could proclaim the gospel.
So I find this fascinating. I find this fascinating from a modernist perspective.
Yeah.
You have this whole Alex Gerardo and Matt Fradd, on the podcast, joking about who they'd excommunicate and punish and discipline, forcing people maybe. And I could kind of see myself in a minor way in this category, having to make, I promise never to, criticize the Pope or whatever, making public statements and all this stuff. They were having a good laugh at that while they smoked their cigars. And yet, I don't call Paul VI saint all that often, because I'm a little like, why are we canonizing every post-Vatican II saint as though they were what? Anyway, but they would, right? Like that's their team, St. Paul VI. St. Paul VI wrote Evangelii Nunciandi. And if you read Evangelii Nunciandi, which I have several times, St. Paul VI makes it very clear whose job is what. Stay in your lane. That's Paul VI, Evangelii Nunciandi. It ain't the lay person's job to do that work. That belongs to the hierarchy of the church. That belongs to the priesthood. My job as a lay person, according to St. Paul VI and Evangelii Nunciandi, is to what? Be formed by the church. Take that apologetics, take that catechesis from the clergy, be formed by it. And now that I'm a well-formed Catholic, go out into the public sphere and dominate. Bring the glory of God to the public sphere. Where? To education, to media, to politics, to culture, to art, to all the spheres in the secular world. So Paul VI makes it clear that we're to stay in our lane. And I just find it very, very curious how the same team that would be happy to criticize me, Pope-splain and criticize me for being a Pope critic, will ignore Pope Paul VI, Pope St. Paul VI, in his own instruction, by usurping the duty of the clergy. Like that's, I don't know. I find that bizarre.
I like what I saw. I saw one of the I think it was it was Avoiding Babylon who made this. I can't remember who did, but one of them made this point on X sometime last night. I think that. We're not apologists. We're not preachers. We're not ministers. We're entertainers. We're here to entertain. Yes, I was like, yes, you're court jesters like me. You're here to 100%. You're here to just make people.
My
make
job
them laugh.
is to be a talking head.
Don't you know everyone wants to laugh?
Yeah, that's
my
literally
grandpa
my
said,
job.
go out and tell them a joke, but give it plenty.
Hey, Gregory brings up an excellent, scary point though, and boy, this is definitely a scary thing for somebody in my shoes. Gregory says, what would happen if all of a sudden someone made up allegations against you, Joe? Some people would believe it no matter what you said. Dangerous world for Christians. 100% true. The other day I was watching Tucker Carlson interview the guy from, he used to work at The Hill. Now he doesn't work there anymore. I forget his name now. Anyway, and Tucker said, I don't have a computer. He goes, I don't own a computer because if they want to frame you, they will dump child porn on your computer to frame you. And that reminded me, you remember the priest in the FSSP priest who wrote Nothing Superfluous?
Father Jackson.
You remember that story about Father Jackson when it broke several years back now? And I got into a conversation with Christine Niles over it. And there was a whole dust up between trads and non-trads and that kind of thing. And all I ever said was, hey, listen, it's possible to dump junk on his computer and frame him. I said, but at the end of the day, if he's guilty, I want him in prison. If he's not guilty, I want his reputation restored to him. Mm-hmm. But then I said, but that ain't going to happen, is it? Even if he's not guilty. Like, the ship has sailed. And I think, Gregory, you're right. I think even if they were false allegations levied against me, would my reputation ever be fully restored if that were to be true? If that came out that I was being framed or whatever? No, the answer is no. And that would be a burden. That would be a cross that I would have to bear with humility, because I would be humbled. It would be humiliating. But worse would be the effect on my family, the effect on my wife in particular, but let alone my children, who, as they become adults, would become more aware of those kinds of things. It is incredibly a serious matter, but at the end of the day, this is part of the reason why you have to know your boundaries. Don't give them a reason. Don't give them, as I had a master sergeant in my command once tell me, because I was a young, stupid kid, I've made plenty of very terrible choices in my life, and I'm so grateful for mercy. I'm so grateful for forgiveness, and so grateful for second chances, which is why I say pray for Alex Gerardo. And the priest in Toulouse, France, who is now the chancellor there, even though I don't think he ought to be chancellor. He should be forgiven, but not chancellor. Anyway, he once said to me, "Boy, I'm going to give you all the rope you need to hang yourself." Don't give them the rope with which you will hang yourself. So you got to know your boundaries. You got to know where your weak spots are, and you got to fortify your position. So if you know where there's a weakness in your wall, fortify it. You got to be honest about it. You got to make those tough choices, right? William Jones says Father Jackson's story was and remains hinky. Even the plea agreement was an Alford plea, but not called an Alford plea. You lost me. Are you saying he's not guilty, that he just did a plea deal in order to lessen to mitigate the punishment? Maybe. I don't know. I personally don't know. By the way, I really liked his book, Nothing Superfluous. It's a great book. It's a really great book. But I got in trouble for reading that book. I got into an argument with people because I was reading the book. I'm like, it's a great book. Yes, but the man is bad. Okay, so what? Throw the book away? I mean, that sucks. The book is great. I mean, maybe you buy yourself a copy and then just take a Sharpie and black out his name and forget all about who wrote it. Maybe they should republish it under anonymous or something. I don't know. But like, it's a good book. Nothing superfluous. But unfortunately, it will be forever tainted because of his story. Jonah says other people did not accept the opinion or suggestions of others because of the positions, title, or profession. I get mid-thought. I don't know what that means. I don't know. Hey, Becky says, Segar. Thank you. The guest on Tucker Carlson. Yeah, Segar. I used to watch him when he was on the Hill. Him and his co-host there. I forget her name too. They would take opposite sides of these issues and sort of debate it out. It's kind of like the old days of Hannity and Combs. Remember that? Remember back when Sean Hannity was a Catholic and still married to his wife? Oh, the good old days, huh? The good old days. Jane says, I just heard someone on the Intel side say there's way too much kiddie porn. In other words, he's believed it was planted. I definitely believe that's a real thing. Mm-hmm. But that's usually for like people who are a threat to them politically or to the national security or whatever. And isn't that what's behind the whole Epstein thing? The whole theory that Epstein was an agent of the Israeli intelligence apparatus in order to give them the cards they need to play world politics. How else do you continue to get them to fund $1 billion a year towards their causes?
And for the record, and some people have been good at making this point on X, is that don't conflate the Epstein thing with other with pedophilia scandals, because the Epstein thing seems to be more of a
intentional.
Well, no, not intentional, but more of a this is not related to maybe not related, but people conflate it with allegations of pedophile networks, whereas Epstein's modus operandi seems to more be providing girls that seemed like they were of age, providing prostitutes who seemed like they were of age, but then he knew he could legally demonstrate that they were underage, and that's the blackmail thing. He wasn't, trying to catch active pedophiles who were after, actual little children. He had basically this prostitution ring that had the blackmail aspect of, that prostitute you slept with, where basically a regular old affair, so to speak, is less scandalous than actually illegally sleeping with a legal minor. And when you thought she was of age, and remember the whole Matt Gaetz thing that disqualified him, where he was potentially sleeping, like he thought she was of age but she wasn't, type of thing. That's what the Epstein issue really is technically about. And I know this is all gross, but it's important to make this distinction because
it's going to make that point.
Yeah, it's important to make this distinction between the allegations.
It's really just disgusting. However,
everyone keeps calling the Epstein thing, talking about it as if this is the the example of the alleged pedophile networks of blackmail and stuff like that. And it's really it's a very specific style of blackmailing people and getting them into your control. So make that distinction when you're talking about this, because everyone's like, well, anyone who's covering Epstein, it must mean that they are pedophiles who are being blackmailed too. Like Epstein clearly was pretty much. I've never seen any allegation that he was dealing with anything other than underage or potentially underage female prostitutes. And again, they could have been groomed in this way. I'm not saying they weren't taken advantage of, but it's separate from all those stories that were going around about these actual active pedophile networks where people were going after babies and children and horrible stuff like that. So
Lynn Pine says, why does the Station of the Cross still broadcast Father Crappie's talks? I'm not being judgmental, just curious. I would say for the same reason why I would say that Father Jackson's books, Nothing Superfluous, is still a good book.
Yeah.
Because
we don't publicize that it is by Father Crappie. We're just like, this is good content. There's nothing objectionable in the content. We're going to avoid the celebrity aspect of it and just, listen to the
because we don't have his name messages on any of it.
Yeah.
They're still very good and powerful messages, even if the guy behind them,
Yeah. Again, because like any of our, we air sermons every morning that are anonymous, and some of the priests I know who they are because I'm the one making the sermons. But some of them, I find them from sources who also keep the priests anonymous, and I don't know their name. And I don't know if that priest, maybe is a horrible sinner in his private life. But I do know that the content is worthwhile, so I'm presenting
100%. What was it St. Augustine said? The validity of sacraments is not based on the holiness of the priest. If he's validly ordained and he intends to do what the church intends for the sacrament, then it's valid.
Yes. Whether
or not the priest is sinful or not. And that's true. I think also, if I'm not mistaken, even if the priest is in mortal sin, but still intends to consecrate the Eucharist as the church teaches, it would still be valid, if I'm not mistaken on that.
Mm-hmm. If I went into a confession box, and I'm not saying this is a very likely scenario for multiple reasons, but if I went into a confession box and had a fairly normal, Novus Ordo confession, it was maybe a very weak penance or weak or advice or something like that. But everything was fine. He said the prayer of the church for the absolution, and I walked out, and I found later on that it was Father James Martin in that confession box. I wouldn't doubt that I had a valid confession. I might be like, oh, well, that explains why it was a little weak on the penance and advice side.
Your penance, but you need to go read Amoris Laetitia.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right.
What? I was told that in a confession at a Jesuit retreat. Actually, we went to confession, and the Jesuit priest
I think
actually told me I had to go read Amoris Laetitia. I'm like, what?
Hey, that's penance. That's a great penance. That's very penitential.
No, Father, please, 180. Rosaries in Aramaic, kneeling on broken glass. Please. Nope. Go read Amoris Laetitia. No. Anyway, Sci-Fi says, I thought Father Crappie reconciled with the church and is just being kept in a private life away from his public ministry. No, sorry, that is not true. There's a lot of rumors flying around about that. Mm-hmm. He's not in some monastery someplace. He lives in his cabin in Montana. He's never left his cabin in Montana. He still lives there. He's never been reconciled with his order. He is a lay person. He's been laicized. I got a personal phone call from the order when he got laicized. So I can tell you he's never been reconciled. But that doesn't. But he's still like, I can assume the best with Father Crappie. He's praying, fasting, doing penance, leading a quiet life in his cabin in Montana. Good for him. I mean, I have no problem with that. Good for him. Praise God. He has a motorcycle and rides it through the twisties. I'm jealous. I wish I had a Harley and I could ride it through the twisties. That's the best. I got to tell you, one of the greatest motorcycle rides was riding up the Kangamangas, in the White Mountains in New Hampshire, then riding over to Maine and down the coast. I mean, it's the best. I've never rode the twisties in Montana, but I have to say it's probably going to be amazing. So I'm very happy and jealous for him all at the same time. Your penance was to text 3 people. Yikes. Yikes. Alex Gerardo shouldn't be texting anybody at this point. He should have texting privileges removed. John B., good morning to you. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Low key's going through Windswept House. His mind is being blown at the moment. Yeah, okay. It's a mind-blowing bit of work, isn't it? By the way, our good friend Rob Morrow's got his book coming out on Malachi Martin later this year. We're going to get him on to talk about it. I'm looking forward to it. He said, Loki says, the thing about Diddy and Epstein is where they were getting their money from and who was getting the blackmail material. I definitely think there's more to those stories.
Yeah. And again,
I'm
that
not
could be
at all convinced that those stories are over.
And that's one reason why the Trump admin might be covering it up, is because they're like, actually, we could use this. Actually, we kind of want this for future use type of thing. So stop talking about it. Make it go away.
Stop, please. Yeah.
Man. That is one potential explanation of this. So that's,
I don't know.
Yeah.
The whole thing is just as muddy as it gets. How do you get to be president of the United States unless you have to do business with some very squirrely people, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to rub elbows with there is no Mr. Smith goes to Washington.
Nope.
Like I just don't believe
look what
that.
happened to him.
I believe if
look what
Mr.
happened
Smith,
to him.
Yeah, if Mr. Smith gets to Washington, he's not Mr. Smith 60 days later. Okay, he's somebody else at that point. They the system is designed to pull you in, and you don't get to remain an disinterested third party. I don't believe that's the case. Good morning to you, Christine OFS. You are amazing. God bless you. Thank you for being on the team today. I've been listening. I want your comment. If you can question, is it sinful to burn my copy of Amoris Laetitia?
Hey, burning is how you get rid of holy items too. So. Fire.
I think we should burn them and have like a big ceremony. That's what I think. I think we should just all we should get together we should do a conference. How about that? How many people want a Catholic Take conference where we get together and everybody brings their Amoris Laetitias and we light candles, because it's what you do when you're just having a spiritual moment. You just light a candle. You're just going to hold hands, right? Just going to hold hands, light candles, and we're just going to burn our copies. Can we also do Fiducia Supplicans too? Can I just throw another log on that fire? Literally? Can we do like a bonfire? We should do a bonfire at a big conference. Where should we do the conference? Should it be centrally located, or should I just do it in Buffalo? Buffalo is not centrally located, making that harder. Mm-hmm. But maybe like St. Louis, there's an oratory there. Quite lovely, quite beautiful.
St. Louis has some beautiful churches.
There's a wonderful basilica that is very, very nice. Not as great as Our Lady of Victory in Lackawanna.
Well, what is?
That's exactly the point. Like, what is? Like, you know what I mean? Like, at that point, what are we even talking about? But I don't know. St. Louis might be a great city to do it in. I suppose Chicago, but we probably wouldn't be welcome there. I don't even know if we'd be welcome to St. Louis, if I'm being honest. I don't know. Louisville? Nope, definitely wouldn't be welcome to Louisville. An ACT cruise, Darren, now you're talking. That was a good time going on a cruise with Bishop Strickland across the Aegean Sea. I wouldn't do a carnival cruise, though, Lost Creole. I don't think I can hang. It's like being in Las Vegas. No, thank you. No. I enjoyed the cruise that we were on across the Aegean Sea because it was clearly designed for older crowd, not a younger, rowdy crowd, but an older, more muted, chill crowd. I liked that. Nothing was in my face. Whereas Carnival Cruise is like a frat party. It's like spring break. I'm not up for it. Get off my lawn, you whippersnappers. Like, turn down your music. And then all of a sudden Jake is going to want to start rapping because he's going to be so influenced by his surroundings and his peer group. It's just going to, I don't want to see that for Jake. It's not good. Not good for his soul. E. Kruger says, yes, if it's in St. Louis, I'm in. You would be welcome in Chicago if you went to the Canyons regular. Well, there is something. That'd be beautiful, wouldn't it? Who should we get to come to our A Catholic Take conference? What would you want? What headliners would you want? Maybe get the Avoiding Babylon crew to show up. That'd be kind of fun. It'd be a rowdy, ripping good time. I don't know. I could see doing something like that someday. That'd be a fun time to do. We had a great 25-year conference in Buffalo, though. That was massive and awesome and amazing. I got to step on Candace Owens' foot. I stepped all over her toe, and I stole her phone. I'll never forget that. She's probably already forgotten, but I will never forget it. Hey, God bless you all. Thanks for hanging out and for the conversation. Pray for Alex Gerardo. Tomorrow on the team, we got J.C. Miller. We're going to talk about homeschooling and who knows what else trouble we'll get into. Until then,